What's up, y'all? It's Joe Budden, here to talk about Prize Picks. Football season is heating up, and Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action while watching football. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. The app is really simple to use. Pick 2 or more players across any sport, pick more or less on their projection, and you could win real cash on your lineup. Prize Picks even invented the flex play, so you can still cash out if one of your picks doesn't hit. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match players from different sports. Real money sports action while watching football.
Download the Prize Picks daily fantasy app today and use code FIELD and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code FIELD on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
The wrongs we must right. The fights we must win. The future we must secure together for our nation. This is what's in front of us. This determines what's next for all of us. We are Marines. We were made for this.
The Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good morning and welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. With me as always, Alan Medlock, A Medlock 1, getting him before the big high school crunch comes and we get the guests that have to try to fill his shoes. Alan, how are you doing and how was your Christmas?
Good. Well, I'm doing great, doing good. Christmas is great. A lot of time to spend with family that we had everybody in, which was nice. And I'm using this week as a hardcore rest before we get started. So it's been really, really nice. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good Christmas. Boy was in for a while and had to go back to Fayetteville a little earlier than we'd liked him to, but the way it goes. Had good resting time, and it's just hard to believe that we're here at this part of the year.
Yes.
Where we flip the calendar, in just a couple of days to 2025, and it just seems like every year these things go by faster and faster.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. We had to go to Stillwater and help my middle daughter do some stuff last night, and on our way back, I was listening to a couple of podcasts, and it's just one of those that it's hard to believe that come the first, we're less than 6 weeks from pitchers and catchers. And I mean, a lot of stuff can happen in 6 weeks, but still, the off season that we thought was going to drag on, they'll be on the field in no time.
Well, and I mean, you're just looking at 3 weeks or so until winter warm up.
Yeah, it's true.
Which is, at least if nothing else, it may not be, big and huge newsworthy and stuff. It does usually generate something.
Without a doubt. Yeah, that's that's something that I hadn't even considered. I was just thinking about the first time we're going to see people on, which usually starts sometime in the end of January anyway. I mean, it's close.
Yeah, I mean, there have been times where we've heard at least reports. We don't necessarily see them because of, Derek Gould and Katie Wu and all them don't usually get down there till beginning of February. But, we hear reports of players that go from winter warm up down to Jupiter or that have, even down there even beforehand. So,
yeah.
And especially with some of these young guys, you got to feel like if they have the opportunity, they're spending the winter down there getting some work in.
Sure. Well, and that's another thing that I think, as we'll get into some of the things about this year's team and next year's team and things that we want to see, I think that it would be it would behoove them, and it would build more fan interest if we would see these young guys realizing that, hey, the opportunity's there, and we're going to take advantage of it and show up like regulars, sooner rather than later. And I think that's one of those things that if we're going to test, it's going to be such a transitional year going from one management group to another, that some of these things are still going to be in the gray area. But I know that, online we've seen questions of extensions and, is that going to be possible? Now we're going to be seeing this roll from Mo into Heim and all those things. But I still think some of that, the interest that starts with the fans is going to be on the ground level stuff of, hey, these are going to be regular everyday guys, and look, we're here, and let's see this lineup start coming together.
Yeah, before we shift completely off of Christmas into baseball, though, we did get, we had a couple of questions that came in, and one of them related to the holiday season. So I do want to go ahead and hit that one while we're at it. Ted Moore, who's at TEKTMZ on Twitter, asked, fruitcake, yay or nay? So what's your opinion on fruitcake?
I read that, and I thought it through, but I've got to be honest. I don't know if I've had fruitcake since I was in single digits. You know what I mean? I think it's been that long. It has not been a fall holiday staple around me or anybody that I've ever been associated with. So I'm going to say nay, just because, my experience is limited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same way. And I'm pretty sure that one of my aunts would bring it to our Christmas.
I think that's
but
the exact same experience I had.
Yeah, but again, it's been, 20, 25, 30 years ago since we did that. And maybe you've had it here or there. I feel like when I've had it, it's been fine. But yeah, it's been a long, long time. So I don't know. Is fruitcake just something that's phased out? Is it more of a legend than in anything else, or is it more a fact that it's not a Southern thing? I don't know. I would be interested if you're listening to the show and want to tell us about your fruitcake experiences. Please do. Again, maybe it's just because where we're living, but we're not seeing fruitcake quite as often as other people. Maybe it's because there's only like 2 fruitcakes and they travel around the world and they just had dinner in. I don't know.
The Santa Claus of cakes.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, I did want to hit that before we get too far into anything else. But yeah, so it's been quiet, as as everybody knows. I mean, it's always quiet in the last 2 weeks of December. Usually, we say that Corbin Burns signed in the middle of the night last night. So and Hernandez signed with the Dodgers yesterday. I mean, there are moves that happen here and there, but for the most part, things get kind of quiet. But it's been quiet the whole winter. I mean, I got the Joe Sheehan newsletter come to me email. He pointed out there's like 2 or 3 teams. There's like 5 or 6 teams that hadn't made at one point in time hadn't made a move at all. And the Cardinals, the only Cardinal move that they've made is the claiming of Rodrigo Munoz, who, okay, that's just a claim. They really haven't done anything this winter. And that's a little, I don't want to say surprising, but it's a little bit out of character because they've usually done something by this point in time. And yet we're sitting here and it feels like, I guess it's all on the shoulders of Nolan Arenado.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Is the move going to be the move they make going to be whether Arenado's out or not? Is that the one that we're going to circle the quickest? I would say that to answer my own question, I mean, it seems like that's the only thing they can do without. If you do anything else, you're going to block some of the guys that you're touting that you're going to play the whole time. That saga I think is going to take a little bit of time. And we'll see how it goes. I listened to the Foul Territory Cardinals Territory podcast yesterday, and Polo Asensio was Katie's guest host, and he's convinced that he'll go to camp with them. And I just kind of wondered where you felt like that, because I don't know if that's a situation. I really don't know how I don't know how to feel about that on the move, because I was thinking it was a foregone conclusion he was going to be gone. There's a personal, with me, I would like to see him back, but is it one of those that it would just be so splintered at this point that you couldn't make it work? But also, he's the one that turned down the deal.
Right, right. And I think basically it would be fine for Nolan to come back right now. I mean, if they started camp today, I don't think it would be a clubhouse issue or anything like that. Um, I do think it's the club went from we're going to try to make the best trade possible to we've got to get rid of him because we got to save the salary.
Yeah.
Um, really, really quickly. So it makes it difficult to believe that they won't trade him, but Houston has taken care of their issue. He's not going to Houston now,
Yeah.
even if he wanted to try to change his mind. He can't go. The Dodgers have got like 80 people on the roster now.
Yep.
So I don't think that, so you're really limiting your choices. I mean, I think the Yankees are still possibly involved maybe, and you hear about the Red Sox. But does he want to play in one of those two teams? I mean, they're obviously, going to be contenders. But is that the situation that he wants to be in? I mean, he's been in Colorado, he's been in St. Louis. He's not been in a huge market, and not everybody wants to be. I mean, I'm sure he'd be fine there if he wanted to do that. But that being said, he was willing to go to LA and stuff because he's from that area. So he very well may be willing to go to the American League and play in one of those teams. I don't know, but I also know that the smaller that this market gets, the less likely the Cardinals are to get anything significant for him. And it feels like we're still waiting on, Alex Bregman to sign. And, if it gets down to February, is it just less disruptive to keep him rather than trying to trade him then?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those that, let's just say that they break camp with Nolan breaks camp with them and comes down. I almost feel like that is one that move is going to take so much effort to get done at potentially the break. I guess any trade could happen. We've seen,
Mm-hmm.
but I would think that he's probably here, wouldn't you? If he makes it to spring training.
I mean, probably. It's possible that a really strong first half and he gets moved at the deadline. But if he continues with the way he's been the last couple of years, yeah, I don't think anybody makes a big push for him. I mean, you never know with injuries and things like that, but if he's going to just go be a bench bat, I don't know that he's got that traded. I don't think he'd want to do that,
No.
right? I mean, I don't think he necessarily wants to be the guy on a team right now, which is fair because he's getting older in his career and he may realize really kind of realize he can't really carry a team. But I don't think he wants to be just this, carry on luggage type of thing, that, okay, they I want a ring, but I really didn't do much to win it.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's what he wants either. I don't think it's just like, I have to have a ring. I think he wants to contribute toward it. And, if a team's up by, 20 games and then wants to add him as, like insurance, I don't know that that's what he'd want to do. I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. It's, that's the one frustration with this being the move, which we've talked about this a lot. There's to me there's an enthusiasm from me to want to see the younger guys play. I'm kind of glad that they've decided to go a direction and say let's roll this out and let's see who we can count on in the future and who we can't, what these guys are, because I mean it's all been speculative at this point. It turns into the prospects or suspects and one of those things until we know. So I kind of like that I kind of like that there's a direction now moving into the season, which I was texting my buddy as I was like, I know this seems crazy, but I'm more looking forward to this Cardinals team than I have in a while, because I don't know. I think that we've eliminated the ifs as far as if this goes down, they're going to be pretty good, and this goes down,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I felt like they signed a bunch of ifs last year that actually worked out. It's just they just couldn't hit. So there's going to be an element to me that's excited for things this season, just for that aspect of it. That being said, I've gone back and forth on the Arenado deal. To where in the beginning of the offseason we put percentages on what we thought was going to happen about him being gone. Then you go, and for Mo to be that direct whenever he is, those things happen. And then to see that, there was kind of a sweetheart type deal with Houston that he turned down. And it's one of those on the optimistic side to me. In my thinking, is Nolan thinking, hey, this isn't a punt for next year. This is I want to make sure that I'm not so certain Houston's going to be that much better than St. Louis. And I was thinking that mindset, which may be way off base. But now I've gone from, well, if he shows up, I mean, how much does that hinder Gorman? Or is it going to be a situation where, Brendan Donovan being your multi-tool, is he the safety net on just about any position? And would it be better for an Arenado to be in the lineup? I've kind of gone all over the place on this one. When we go into the you go to the winter warm-ups, you see the comments, and my first reaction was, well, that's going to have to be a move that has to be made. But I'm not so certain that Nolan just said no for the leverage. I think that there's a lot of thought that's gone into this, and that tells me that, hey, that things aren't as ugly as we seem, or as some may think.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said on the most recent Gateway, I think the only way that it becomes a negative thing, and it may be that I'm not gonna argue that there might be a little bit of a straining of a relationship between the front office and Nolan, just because but there really shouldn't be, especially if Houston wasn't on the list, then they should have known that was a possibility. But I wonder if, the Cardinals then came out and said, hey, if we can't trade Nolan, then we've got to look at trading, Steven Matz
Yeah,
and Fetty and all that. And then we're like, well, one, you should be doing that anyway.
sure.
But two, I mean, I could see that being an issue. Like, hey, my friend could have still been here if you had taken that trade. And so maybe there's a little bit of could be a little bit of resentment there, but I don't even think there'd be that much either, right? I mean, I think it might mean, like you said, might mean something to them that, hey, he's like, hey, I wanted to stay. He's not as adamant about it as Contreras and Sonny Gray were, but he's still like, hey, it's going to take the right thing for me to leave. And I don't know, there may be a part of him that's a little bit intrigued about being that veteran presence on a team. We saw him, we saw some pictures of him and some reports about him, really trying to step up in that leadership role last year, even though we know that he and Goldie had asked for Carpenter and Pham and all these kind of people to come in, try to fill that role. It felt like he had learned a little bit from that, maybe. And so maybe he's interested in that. And I think there's probably a way to juggle it so that you can still get, the at bats for Gorman and stuff like that. You just have to Nolan would have to just say, you'd have to let him know, hey, you're not going to get to play every day here. And that might, change his mind, right? I mean, that might, if you say, hey, if you stay, we're still going to only play you, 3 or 4 times a week because we need to see Gorman at third, or we need to see, whoever, whatever. Does that say, well, that changes the equation and I'll accept some trades? Or if he's like, okay, that's fine. Let's help develop these guys. I don't know.
Yeah, that's maybe me being naive. I don't think the Cardinals would approach it like that. You know what I mean? Is it a situation of I think if he's there, he's their third baseman. You know what I mean? Then
That's probably true.
And you figure out the rest of it from there. That's and that to me also makes it seem like there wouldn't be any bad blood, because it was funny, like Brzezinski was on foul territory, and he made a comment after that he turned it down. He said that whenever they were it was on the West Coast, I can't remember, it may have been San Diego. Whenever Phil Nevin turned his no trade down, said, no, I won't leave, they told him that he'd be catching. And he said that whenever they went to camp and that started, he changed his mindset pretty quickly that he wanted out. I just don't
Yeah.
see that happening. I could see that you did bring up something that I was a little concerned about, that that maybe I shouldn't be. I'm not certain. But if Nolan comes back and he's their everyday third baseman, then you go down the list of other ways to relieve salary. Um, and I just want to know, are they that strapped for cash where you have to do that? Like, I agree with you. You should be shopping Mats, Michaelis, and some of those guys, regardless. And I think they probably are doing that. So I don't know how much we're just maybe looking too much into this, but I don't want to see a situation where, well, if you're staying, then Gray's leaving. I just don't want to see that
Yeah.
happening.
And I don't think they'll go to that route. I mean, I do think they would be looking at, like I said, the Mats and the Michaelis and the Fetties, but I mean, if they were open to trading Gray, they wouldn't have asked him if he wanted to stay. I don't think, to some degree. On the fact that, are they that cash strapped? And it's another thing I got into on Gateway, right before Christmas. My frustration a bit with the front office and the ownership here is, look, I know that there's a significant hit coming in the money deal on the TV deal, 25% or so they've dropped there. I know that attendance is probably going to be less, because of the last couple of years, and more importantly, because you've come out and said, hey, we're not going to try to win this year, which is going to make an impact at the front at the gate. But I also know how much, when that TV deal was just rolling right along and the stadiums were absolutely full, you didn't see over the top spending, right? They spent. I'm not arguing that they haven't spent some, but we also have seen that payroll continue to drop over the last few years, even as relative to the league, even as the contract is going and getting bigger, and people are coming in, and they haven't lowered ticket prices as far as I know. So my point is, I feel like they should be able to suck up a little bit of a loss for a year or two when they've sucked up a whole bunch of a profit over the last 10. It's a little bit like insurance to me. It's like you pay insurance, and then as soon as you have a claim, or as soon as insurance has a bad year, a hurricane comes through or whatever the case may be, then all of a sudden the rates have to go up, even though it's like, well, what happened there? You should have invested that money. You should have been making a ton of money. You shouldn't have to raise rates just because the storm came through. It's just a nice, convenient excuse to some degree.
Yeah.
And so that's my thinking is, the front office should have been, or the ownership should have been willing to say, hey, we're not going to add. I can understand that. We're not going to bring Goldschmidt back. We're not going to go out and get free agents, but we're going to be able to keep what we have. And if we don't make quite as much money, or if we take a little bit of a loss here, we're going to be fine. And I think that's what bothers me the most is, if you're telling me you want to trade Nolan Arenado because you're looking for development, that's one thing.
Yeah.
If you're telling me you're trading Nolan Arenado because he makes, millions of dollars and you don't want to pay it, that's a totally different thing.
Sure. No. And that's well said, because I wondered about that. I wondered about that. I don't think until the winter meetings that we were ever, well, I'm not necessarily, I don't know if that's true, because I felt like that the reset hasn't necessarily been the roster. The reset was going to be how they spent their money. You know what I mean? But I didn't necessarily think that was going to be hey, if you're making it, we're sending you out. We kind of drew the lines of the guys that were going to be traded just due to having value and where they were contractually in their, in their careers. And that made a lot of sense. Goldschmidt not coming back makes a lot of sense. You got a lot of guys that can play there. You're going to have to figure something out. Arenado, the long-term contract, while it's going to be hard to move, made a lot of sense of him moving for the same reason. I mean, you have guys that can play there that you're going to have to figure out. Never once did I think it was because of the money that he made, and that they couldn't afford it and they needed to cut back. So that's one of the things that concerned me. If he says no, then they're going to move to of Fetty. They say no, and if it ends up on Gray, well, then you need to reword how you're saying this, because then it's not necessarily a reset. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way that I look at it, and I may be jumping ahead on topics. I know we didn't really have a timeline on how we wanted to handle today, but so I think there's the bottom tier teams that want to follow the Rays market and the way that they've done things, and I think Cleveland's done that a little bit, to where they've mimicked the ways that the front offices manage and move guys out, and figure it out, and stay on a competitive basis. I think there's a mid tier that people are going to start following the Braves model, and that's where I think the Cardinals are sitting right now, which is intriguing to me. And if that some of these saved funds go to signing some of these guys out of their arbitration numbers so they can keep them long term, now I'm all about that. That would make a lot of sense. I can tell by the way that you're talking, and by the way that I'm talking, that I don't think either you nor I believe that that's what's happening, and that's a concern to me. I know that we're going to talk about some extensions and why I think it would be the right move right now, but to me it sounds like, I hate to use the term cheap, but I feel like right now that they're trying to they're trying to recoup some of the mistakes they've made in the contracts that they've signed anyway.
And I'm going to say, to some degree, I mean, one, I wonder, beginning of the winter, when they're talking about this stuff, I wonder if they expected Gray and Contreras to be more open to trade. And so they thought they would save money there and wouldn't have to necessarily move Nolan for just salary reasons. And then of course, they wanted to stay, and I think that maybe threw him for a loop. I get also that the Cardinals tend to run the business of the Cardinals separate from the business of Ballpark Village, separate from the personal worth of Bill DeWitt, and the Cardinals have to kind of stand on their own and make money in that regard. And so when you're taking the money that's coming out, I get to some degree why they say that. I don't think it's necessarily right. It's not the approach I would do. But okay. But still, I don't know. I mean, until we see, we don't see books, right? We don't
Yeah.
know. We know how much we can kind of ballpark some things. We know they wanted to put some more money into development this year, and they've hired people, so they started doing that. But even that, I think we talked about this at the beginning of the winter. What they want to put into development probably doesn't pay for a middle reliever these days, right? You get a lot more impact. If you put $10 million into your, development, you get a lot more impact than, $10 million to your major league roster. But I don't know. Again, the DeWitt ownership is a lot better than a lot of the ones around the league. But when you look at some of these other ones, and again, I get the Dodgers, the Mets, they have maybe deeper pockets, but it's also refreshing to see them trying to, spend money to get people in the ballpark and to win ball games. And it feels like the Cardinals aren't as interested in that right now.
Yeah.
So
No, I completely agree. That's it. I understand there's a whole lot that goes into it, and we've been talking for 3 years that they're stuck in the middle, and I think there's an element now that they may still be playing in that middle ground, but I'm also optimistic that playing the younger guys is going to be the better move this year. I think that'll kind of surprise you. And like I said, I'm trying not to jump ahead on topics. Not like we had a timeline, but I know that there were some questions that were asked. But if you're putting all the faith into, hey, we're playing the youth, these guys are coming, we're going to give them a full opportunity. And you want people in the seats, don't you honestly have to at least make it public that you're trying to sign Win long term? Because in buying out his arbitration years, I don't know if you give him another faith. If you give him the, hey, show us one more year before we look into that type of situation, you may lose a little more faith in the fan base than you think at that. I just think that if you're going all in and you're playing this, that you're going to have to start, get back to the Braves model type deal. You're going to have to start buying out some of these younger guys, before you have to, essentially.
Yeah, I think that, especially if you're doing nothing else this winter, I think to get some sort of excitement around it would be nice. Now, it also helps that the Cardinals are not one to trade those kind of guys.
Yeah.
So it's not like some teams where, oh, they haven't locked him up, so they're going to trade him, and if they don't sign him, you still expect those players to be around. But yeah, it would be nice to know that, one, that they value the players like we think they should.
Yeah.
And two, they're willing to lock that down and then not have to go through arbitration. So let's go ahead and tackle that question from Thomas Quavain, who writes over at Redbird Rants, who did ask us, which player do you want to receive an extension on the team right now? So, I've talked about it, and I've talked about it too. But I've been pretty open in my campaigning for Mason Wynn to have an extension now, and I think
Yes.
making him the face of the franchise is a great idea. I think that we've seen him. I don't worry about his drop off as much, even if it does come a little bit offensively, because he does have the defense to go along with it. He's playing shortstop, all these kind of things. It makes a lot of sense to me. And I know it does to you. Is there anybody else that would compete with, or you would rather have than Mason Wynn?
No. Yeah. I think it's for anyone, maybe a dangerous thing to say, but for anyone like at our age and that has grown up watching it, he's probably the perfect model of what they've always wanted to be. And for the reason that you said, even if he were to take a step back offensively, defensively, he's going to be right there, and he's going to be in the Gold Glove the Gold Glove talk for a long time, just due to athleticism and the things he brings to the table, which is the model that the Cardinals have always had. I think that if you're going to show the youth, one of the things, like right now, if you're going to say, hey, we're going to play the young guys, this is the way that we're going to get back to our roots a little bit, that would make the most sense of signing him long term and showing that, hey, this is our guy moving forward. We're going to build around this and maybe bring back a brand of baseball that Cardinals fans have wanted for a long time, and that's it, bring back some of the excitement. And I just think he's the perfect guy to approach about, hey, we're going to buy you out of these arbitration years. We want to get you at this level. I think that would be the way to go. I think there's enough smoke now where it feels like something like that would happen. But we'll see. I think that if we're talking about extensions and I think a low hanging fruit one, and this will people will roll their eyes about this, would also be a Helsley. But that one doesn't move the needle like it would with anybody else. But that's it's out there, and I'm afraid that they'll use that as the one. Hey, we're serious about this. We're bringing him back. We didn't trade him. We think we're going to win some games, and this is how we're going to go. But as far as moving the needle, proving, showing, doing some action to back up your words, Win just makes too much sense.
Yeah, I know that Kyle and others have said if you're going to sign Helsley to an extension, you turn him into a starter, which is about the only way that makes sense, honestly, to me. Because you wouldn't. You're going to have to pay him too much to be a closer. I think, especially for a team that. But
no, I completely agree. There's a part of me, like I said, maybe it's the overly optimistic outlook that I have on it, but them. With him coming back and them doubling down saying, hey, we're not trading him, we want him to be a part of this team, tells me that this isn't necessarily a punt on the season. That they think that they may be better than they think they're going to be. They're giving you the soft landing spot if they're not. But I always think about this. And you're missing a great game, Herzog's book. Mm-hmm. One of the first things he brings up, he says, if he's starting a franchise, the first person he's going to go get is Mariano Rivera. He says, because you cannot lose the back end of those games. And I just wonder if that's not some of the mindset of what they're doing right now, to be like, hey, if we have somebody and we feel like we're going to have a good bullpen, even with the guys that have left us, it's got to start back there. And I think that that's some of the mindset about the way that they're approaching the roster this year.
And it might be. Yeah. Herzog always said he got a lot smarter when he got a good bullpen. So, and I get that. That being said, I also wonder, we've talked about it. We look at it now. It's, pitchers, there's more people that can do that than we think, I guess is what it's.
Sure.
Sometimes we
overrate. And we also, it's naive to think that there's an element of desperation for closers at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
To where somebody there may be more likely an overpay. And all those things I understand. I mean, are there. It's just to me, I'm thinking, well, let's look on the bright side about why they may think this is the right move, and I'm probably completely wrong because they're probably looking through the business end of, hey, the get's going to be better in a July.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they didn't get the offers they thought right now. I just, you know, it would be completely Cardinals for Ryan Helsley to get hurt in spring training
Oh
and
yeah,
not play all, most of the year and then walk at the end of the year and sign some big deal. I mean, that would be, get absolutely nothing for him. I mean, that would be very, very Cardinal-like. Hopefully not. Hopefully he pitches all year long for the Cardinals, and then he walks probably but still, just the health issue and the fact that he's probably not going to be as good as he was last year because he was really, really good last year. It just seems like it's maximized the market now.
yeah.
But I can understand. And we saw, Devin Williams didn't go for quite as much as maybe we would have thought. And he's a guy that's got a better track record than Helsley. So, maybe that's the case. I don't know. I would be interesting on people to sign extensions to. The problem is nobody else has necessarily proven that they can do it consistently. You could do a Brendan Donovan. I would say he's probably the
Yeah,
one that's
those
been the most consistent.
exactly. Those are the two. Yeah, Donovan and Wynn are the two that make the most sense, honestly. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say you could try to sign someone like Jordan Walker to a, like basically below market value contract because he struggled, and hope that this, if you feel like you're still Jordan Walker in there, right? That you still feel like he's going to be the guy that you thought he was coming up. See if you can sign him to the contract now, and then when he blossoms, you've got him locked down and at a good rate, which is a kind of a Braves type of thing to do too. That being said, and all this being said, you wonder how much the fact that Mo is there for one more year impacts this, right?
Yes.
I know he said that any long-term things would get the approval of Hein Bloom, and they could easily both be working on something like that, or Heim could say, hey, I think we need to do this. But also, he's not Mo's not the guy that's going to be here next year. So you wonder how much that wrinkle keeps the Cardinals from doing something like this.
Yes. And that's the gray area for me right now is how much we're going to be in neutral this year with the transition, which listen, we know that they're working together and all of those and all that. It's just still kind of concerns me that there's not going to be any big decisions made until next offseason because, one, just out of fan interest, I think that there needs to be something, but I do wonder how much that's going to play into the remaining part of the offseason and how much they're willing to spend money. But, hopefully hopefully these are things that are definitely visited soon, and I can tell the skepticism in both of our voices. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult to imagine. It's difficult to imagine anything right now. It does feel like they're going to do something, though, right? I mean, they're going to either move Arenado or they're going to move some of those other pitchers or both. I mean, and that's what's it's so weird. What's so frustrating is why are you not looking to move a Steven Matz anyway?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, assuming that there's some market out there for him, which I would guess there probably is. He's a guy that can start. He can guy that relieve. He's at a pretty decent contract if he can stay healthy, which is a big if. But why are you not moving him? Why are you? I mean, I know you probably can't get anything for Miles Michaelis. Plus, he's said he wants to stay. I think it's because there was no other option for him. Just, why are you not trying to move a Fetty at because he may have some value right now. Is it? I mean, I know you're talking about depth and stuff, but you're also talking about look. There's a lot of arms out there that you need to see if they're good or not. McGreevy, Graceffo. You're not too far away from needing something for Hintz and Roby, although Hintz maybe not this year. Then you still got let's say you lost Kloffenstein, but Reversa is down there. There's going to be other arms. So whether you use them as starters or you use them in the bullpen, there would seem to be, places that you could clear out. And I know you've got, the 2 spots in the rotation that you lost with Lynn and Gibson, but um, why are you not trying to move some of these guys when you have the opportunity?
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if they are.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
don't know. I thought the same thing, that it just may be quiet. I'm not certain, because then you can you can kind of break down a rotation of, you're going to go, Gray, Fetty, Palante, Michaelis, Mats at this point, correct? With
Yeah, probably.
well, you say that. I mean, or I say that, but you wonder how much, McGreevy, Mats may honestly be more of a competition than we
Mhm.
think. Than
Yeah.
what Thompson can become, and you have some depth at that point. But you're right. I mean, the jury's still out what Mats is going to be, and and are on the Michaelis front, are you just one of those that, hey, you don't have any takers anyway, and B, you need a veteran guy that's just going to get you innings in that situation, just because they could potentially be short on innings if they do go with all the young arms. I just want to know how much Matthews and those guys are going to move the needle in spring, and if there's a chance that
Yeah.
they could be like, hey, this is the route that we're going to go, then it could cost Michaelis a job. I don't know how much that's in play on this one too, but to answer your question, it would blow me away that if they aren't trying to move some of those guys, especially when you hear
Yeah.
interest from the Tigers and White Sox and stuff like that. That, hey, there are suitors out there for these guys, that it could happen. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it makes too much sense to be looking on somebody that is not going to be in your long term plans.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, pretty much anybody needs to be
Yeah, I
on
mean,
the
in the
market right
situation
now.
they're in.
Yeah. You would think, but um, they do things differently up there
Yeah.
sometimes. So um, anyway, I mean, I don't know. There's not much else to talk about. I was looking at the official site, and you tell how cold of a stove there is for the Cardinals because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 7 or 8 links on the front are those kind of every team's reports that they do everything like, one stat for every team to marvel at from the 2024 season. Every team's longest home run for 2024. Each team's prospect whose stock improved the most in 24. All those kind of things that they put together for every team, put somebody of every team on there. That's how cold it is because there's not anything specific to the Cardinals for the most part. There's like the top headline maybe, and then there's promotions and stuff like that, which may have to be heavy this year. It's just quiet. I mean, and it's always. I mean, we were used to this at this time of year, but at least we've had what could they do? What should they do? I mean, we're pretty sure they're not going to do anything except for those, except for maybe that trade, and that trade's not even going to be interesting because they're not going to get anything
No.
back,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're going to get some prospect we've never heard of that's probably never going to make an impact, and they're going to get salary relief, and nobody wears a jersey for salary relief.
Yeah, yeah, that's Lance Lynn was on Foul Territory. It's probably been a few weeks ago, and they were talking about him getting in shape, and he plans to pitch next year because he thinks he can help somebody, and the Cardinals were brought up, and he said that in his meeting with the Cardinals, how they're going to approach it this year is kind of like we've talked about, how it's going to be a youth type movement, but they're going to wait to see how some of the free agent market shakes out before they may make a play late in the year. And I'm assuming those are guys that are just going to, be role guys and more
Mhm.
leadership type situation. And I thought it was interesting that he approached it like that. That how he said that his conversations had been with St. Louis. So I don't think there's going to be anything overwhelming that's coming, and I think that most everybody else is prepared for that. I would think so, and it'll be a quiet off season, and that doesn't necessarily bother me because I think that you can pretty much pin a lineup right now with Arenado in it or out of it, and
Yeah,
there's an element of excitement to that to me, to see that you're going to have the two headed system at catcher, which just about everybody does now. You have the slight comfort of Contreras at first base / DH, meaning that you're going to have Burleson as the other spot. You're going to have your Gorman / Donovan second base situations. So JC's going to be in there somewhere, and then you have Wynn and you know the 3/4 outfielders that are going to play every day. There is a element to that I understand that some of these guys are going to have to show their worth on the field, but I like the fact that there's some stability in a lineup that they're going to have next year that we may see day in, day out. I don't know how you can bring somebody in to help that unless it's on the pitching front. Maybe it's in the bullpen front to kind of help some of the things that we had talked about to secure these wins when they do have a lead. So I don't know. There's some excitement in that stability to me, whether Arenado's in the lineup or not, that I'm looking forward to seeing. And at this point, I'm thinking, well, what benefit would you have by bringing somebody else in? I'm not convinced that exists.
Yeah, I mean, I don't argue with that. I mean, going into this winter, it was fairly clear that there wasn't really anything they could do, right? There's nobody that they're going to bring in that's going to make an impact like that. So yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to be quiet. It's just weird,
Oh yeah, agreed. Yeah.
I don't know, but I would feel. But go ahead.
Well, here's my question to you: Has it been much more active than you thought it was going to be? And not necessarily with bringing people in, but the fact that at least they're in the news a little bit. And I understand it's just because of the white elephant of Arenado, per se. But I really thought it would be completely quiet all off season, really.
I don't know that I would be too. I mean, maybe a little bit because of the Arenado stuff. Honestly, I wasn't sure that there was enough of a market for Nolan Arenado that it would be buzzworthy, if you will. And I guess that's, I guess the name still has some cachet for sure. Yeah, and I mean, we knew they'd be hiring people, and that would probably be the majority of what we heard from. So I guess it hasn't been too much different. It's just so weird. And I get it. I understand it. It was logical, but it was just so weird to open those, prediction pages at the beginning of the winter or in November that, top 50 prospect or top 50 free agents, where are they going? And none of them are even, St. Louis is not even mentioned in the article at all. Usually it's, it's the Collins or, some sort of veteran young guy or something, or a veteran presence maybe, but just not to see them mentioned at all is, I mean, that's true. It's absolutely true, but it was just a little bit weird. And you knew that, I mean, I think that was an indication that you knew this was going to be a winner because we even last year when we're talking about, okay, they need to do some rebuilding and stuff, they had to go get pitching. We knew that.
Yeah.
So we were looking at that, now it is, okay, let's see what we have. And the problem is, I think we would feel a lot better about this team overall if they had some pitching, right? I mean, they've got, we know what Sonny Gray is going to bring. But other than that, it's, the roster, the lineup is interesting because there are a lot of bats that either have proven or, still can, if Newbark can stay on the field, if Walker can actually start to develop into what we thought he was going to be. There's a lot of optimism maybe in the bats, but the pitching side of things is still just kind of, and that's a huge thing.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether I can say this with confidence that I'm more optimistic about the pitching than the bats, just because the hitting was so terrible. But I do feel like the extended runway for guys like Gorman and Walker are going to be beneficial. I really don't know, and that's some of the things I'm kind of looking forward to seeing most is just. Can they become what we think they're going to become or somewhere close? Because if you do that, then you ultimately are going to be better than you think sooner than you think.
Yeah. I think so. And I'm optimistic to actually be able to see them now that we've
100%.
Haven't gotten the details yet on the Diamond Sports, in market streaming, but that may be the biggest story of the whole year, right? I mean, um, that the being able to add that in and let people see the Cardinals inside their market for the first time, except, not have to pay for things to be able to just straight out stream, is a significant deal, even if it did wind up costing the Cardinals money.
Yeah, yeah, that may be the best news of the off season, because that's the one thing of if the growth of the game, unfortunately I see it on the ground level of I just don't understand why they shoot their own blow their own foot
Yeah.
off on this by not letting people watch a whole. Just the blackouts make zero sense to me. And the fact that now they're going to get it, now we're finally starting to get a system to eliminate those things, is that it feels so good, because I can't tell you how many. Honestly, that's just kind of how it goes. But this is how it goes. But the high school kids are Otani fans. They're the fans that there's not a lot of interest in. The markets around here because they can't watch them.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, of course, baseball doesn't care. Baseball just wants you to.
That's the
But
problem.
but
Yeah.
I think that if you don't have that, if you can't watch the team that you're closest to, it's the team that you're most likely to go see and visit in person. It is a problem.
Yeah.
For sure. So, anyway, well, anything else?
Well, before
Anything
we
else you
wrap
want to?
up, can we bring up the fact that the Cardinals have the number 5 pick in a draft that has a holiday in it?
Right. Yeah. I think that I forgot we hadn't recorded since then. The Cardinals get a little bit of a boost, moving up to 5 from what they were supposed to be like 13th, 14th,
Yeah.
probably. It is interesting, and I have seen some, very early projections. So you still have a baseball season to go for all these guys. I've seen some projections that see holiday fall.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I don't know if Colorado could miss out on a holiday either, but and Colorado drafts right before the Cardinals, but I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could take him 5th, which would be really, really interesting.
Well, can you imagine if they're going to double down on the youth movement and you go that route, that's going to be huge for them. If the opportunity is there, and that's one that I don't think they miss. That if he falls to 5, that's one that they're going to take.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what? There's another one in the draft though, and it's Reggie Willett's son, who I don't know if you remember. He was a stud at OU. His dad was. Reggie was a stud at OU, played in the Yankees organization for a long time, and now he's the hitting coach, offensive coordinator at OU. Well, his 2 sons, one of which is playing at Oklahoma now as their starting shortstop as a freshman last year, and his younger son is a stud at a high school that wins every year here in town, or here in Oklahoma. That's another name that I would love to be linked with the Cardinals. He's another switch hitting shortstop, and these are legit players. And you pair that with the Weatherholt, and you could see now, like we talked about last year at the winter warm up, the development area from draft to minor league to the big league level has shortened substantially, and I think that that's one of the benefits of limiting, draft rolls and stuff like that. I will temper this by saying that this is probably going to be an overall weak draft, and there's not a lot of studs in it. But you know what? It's one of those things. If you can get a holiday to land in St. Louis or in the organization at a time when you're pressing this youth movement, I think that is a huge win.
Well, and I have heard it is a weaker draft, and that I'm obviously no expert in that kind of stuff, but I also feel like if you're taking the 5th pick, you're probably getting somebody good, right?
Agreed.
No matter how weak the draft is.
Agreed.
The later picks may not be as much, but you'd rather draft 5th in a weak draft than 14th.
That's well said. That's well said.
You still feel like you're gonna get somebody good, and like you say, somebody that might move fairly quickly, depending on who it is. I think it'd be really interesting to see. Obviously it's best player available, But if it comes down to a hitter or a pitcher, which one do you take? What's the philosophy here? I mean, this will be the first one under the new. I mean, Randy Flores is still running it, but under the new player development and all that kind of stuff, does that make an impact? Do you kind of put that on hold a little bit while you're drafting that high, and you don't have to worry about getting really, it's harder to screw it up, although it can be done. And again, if Ethan Holiday is at 5, you don't have to think at all. You just take him and go.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's very interesting. I'm glad the Cardinals got that high pick. It's the highest pick since JD Drew, which turned out all right. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. And the Cardinals, it's and they know they can't be in the top 5 or 7 or whatever it is. They can't be in the lottery next year. So they're going to have to, 1, make this count, and 2, not be terrible in 2025, because it's kind of like, like the White Sox were last year. They were historically bad, and then they couldn't be picking. They're picking 11th, right? And the Cardinals are not going to be able to pick any higher than 11th next year. So you don't want to be bad, because there's no value in it. So we'll see. Also, the division got a little tougher, I guess, with the Cubs getting Kyle Tucker. Does that?
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Let me describe how my day went that day. So Williams, who we assume it's the Brewers' role that they're going to move those guys. There was enough smoke that you knew that Williams was going to leave at one point, and that's the way that the Brewers do business. And ultimately, I feel like that's how the Cardinals are going to have to do business. So him leaving the division, you're just like, okay, optimistic. Let's see if you can stay in the mix next year as long as you can. And then the same day, the Cubs announced that they're bringing in one of my favorite players, in Tucker. And you're just like, my goodness, what a swing. And so that was how the day went. I was scrolling through, everything, last day of the winter meetings, and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be awesome. Let's see if they can get through it. You lose Williams, the division's going to get a little bit weaker, and then you get one of the top 5 players in the game, arguably, to Chicago, who's probably going to hit 40 home runs and may steal 40 bases. So, not the highs and lows of a winner that you're caught in the middle of just haven't been fun necessarily on the news front that way.
Do you think that, again, we've talked about this idea the Cardinals might have of, let's just see what we can do, and the division will be weak in the win. Does that really impact that? I mean, does the Cubs going out and getting Tucker and then probably solidifying themselves as a favorite for the division, does that then impact the Cardinals that say, okay, well, maybe we're not going to be as competitive as we thought, so let's trade Helsley or something like that? Do you think that, or they've in the past have not let other moves affect them, but I wonder if that's different than this one?
No, I think that they're working in a silo completely to just to figure out what they're going to become, and I don't think that they're worried about what the rest of the division is doing. I think that the way that I feel like they're approached, for better or worse right now, is how can we get better day by day, and whether that's keep these guys or move them, or let's be as quiet as we can about what our intentions are going to be. I think there's still a little bit of element of that, but to me, I feel like they have broadcast what their plans are more now than ever, even including the Mo making the comment of salary relief for the Arenado. I just think that there's a plan and they're sticking to it, because in the past they may not have done that so much.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, they've always been pretty good about that, but yeah, at times they've kind of gotten a little bit away from that's where we're at now, right?
Yeah.
They've gotten away from that player development motto. And I mean, I was thinking about this, talking about Birds guys. We're talking about this show or so ago about how many no trades that the Cardinals have given out. But there was a time where they didn't do that at all.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that they wouldn't give out a no trade, and I think that's one of the reasons. I don't think it's one of the reasons they lost Hayward, but at that point in time they weren't giving him out. I think they would have given him one, but and now it's shifted. Now, granted, Nolan's came with him to some degree, but they gave one to Miles Michaelis, which makes no sense. And Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras, okay, I can understand. I don't know what the thinking was with Miles Michaelis to give him a no trade. I mean, I'm sure he asked for it, and I'm sure, but that was a very strange one to give out. I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, we've gone at it. This is the end of season 10 of this show, which is kind of crazy to think about. We will be back next week with season 11. And just like almost every season as of late, we will be kicking it off with Jeff Jones joining us. At least me. We'll see if Alan's schedule will allow him to join us as well. But until then, anything you want to say to wrap this up?
No, I appreciate you all listening. I have a blast doing this, and I'm gonna keep doing it as long as I can.
There we go. That's what we're gonna do. Whether you're listening or not, we're gonna keep doing it. So just want to give you fair warning. So, all right. Well, hope you've all had a good Christmas. Hope you have a wonderful New Year. We'll be back at you next weekend. But until then, for Alan, I'm Daniel. Good night.
Good night.
They just won't go away.
Hi, everyone. Rich Bray here with another look back at Cardinals history. Today, I want to discuss the trade that made Roger Maris a St. Louis Cardinal. At the time of the trade on December 8, 1966, hand and knee injuries had depleted much of the power that made Maris a household name in 1961, when he slugged 61 home runs to surpass Babe Ruth's single-season record. Despite winning back-to-back AL MVP awards in 1960 and 1961, Maris never enjoyed a good relationship with the New York media, and that relationship only deteriorated as injuries took their toll. In 1966, as Maris played through a knee injury, Yankees manager Ralph Houck cautioned him to run only when he had to. Of course, the Yankees didn't publicize those orders, so when Maris failed to race out ground balls, the fans began to boo him and the New York media criticized his lack of hustle. That summer, Maris informed the Yankees that he planned to retire after the season. Houck asked him to wait until the following spring training to make it official, and Maris agreed. But when Yankees general manager Lee MacPhail called in December to confirm Maris's retirement plans, the Yankees slugger became suspicious and asked MacPhail if he was planning to trade him. MacPhail told Maris that the Yankees had no intentions of dealing him. However, MacPhail was indeed shopping Maris around the league, finally settling on a deal with St. Louis. After the trade was completed on December 8, 1966, the Yankees president told the New York Daily News that only 3 teams had shown any interest. He listed the reasons, quote, 1, he has a peculiar attitude and everybody seems to know it, MacPhail said. 2, he is 32 years old. 3, his physical condition has been questionable lately. 4, he has just had 2 bad seasons. 5, he has been talking about quitting. 6, he makes over $70,000. End quote. The Cardinals, however, were in desperate need of offense after finishing last in the National League in scoring in 1966. To get Maris, they parted with 28-year-old third baseman Charlie Smith. Smith, who had replaced Ken Boyer as the Cardinals' starting third baseman that season, hit .266 with 10 homers and 43 RBIs in his lone season with St. Louis. Now he was headed to New York, where he would replace Ken's brother Cleet, who had been traded from the Yankees to the Braves earlier that offseason. Across 2 seasons with the Yankees, Smith hit .224 with 10 homers and 45 RBIs in 181 games. He played 1 season with the Cubs in 1969 before retiring. Meanwhile, Maris, who had only told a few people about his plans to retire, was initially uncertain whether he would report to St. Louis. Quote, the writers would have made me look bad again, Maris explained. They'd say, well, he's not going to play because he was traded away from the Yankees. They would have jumped on me like it was a big news story, so I finally agreed to go ahead and play the year. Both Maris and the Cardinals were glad that he did. In 1967, Maris hit .261 with 9 homers and 55 RBIs, helping the Cardinals win the World Series title. He enjoyed his time in St. Louis so much that he returned in 1968, batting .255 with 5 homers and 45 RBIs, and once again helping the Redbirds capture the National League pennant. Quote, contrary to what we'd read about him in the papers, Maris wasn't chronically miserable, Bob Gibson wrote in 2015. He was just a plain-spoken, chain-smoking North Dakotan who was happy to be away from high-rise apartments in the media capital of the universe, and happy to finally be happy. So that's the story of how Roger Maris finished his career with the Cardinals, helping them win 2 National League pennants and a World Series title. For more Cardinals history, visit stlredbirds.com or follow me on Twitter at Remembirds, REMEMBIRDS. BIRDS. Thanks again, and go Cards.
Alisea, the second for one, the double play. What a double play by Ozzie Smith. Oh, mercy.